I'm Lawrence Datnoff. I'm currently the department head for plant pathology and crop physiology at LSU and the LSU Ag Center. And there's about 14 faculty members that I collaborate with on a variety of topics. Some of this has to do with mineral nutrition and plant diseases, and some of this has to do with silicon. So the benefits of silicon, especially in plants, is it seems to alleviate stresses, whether they're biotic or abiotic. So I've studied the biotic against a number of what we call host pathogen systems, where you have the pathogen, and it can be the host plant's rice, or it could be turf, or it could be an ornamental. And so we've seen that, for example, in rice, it reduces the components of host plant resistance. And that's a way to measure the development of the pathogen on the plant. So we talk about number of lesions, lesion size, the rate of lesion expansion, the number of spores that could be produced in that lesion. Like with rice, it reduces all of those. So we know there's something going on inside the plant. And we've seen that in other systems like in turf. So then if you start looking at the plant, we see that there's a number defense responses, like phenolics are produced. We get these phytolexin compounds, they're low molecular weight compounds that have antimicrobial activity. PR proteins, pathogenesis related proteins, there's about 16 of those that have been identified so far, and a number of those are present, so they have antimicrobial activity also. Peroxidases are upregulated, and so peroxidases are important in lignin production, and lignin is what fortifies cell walls, for an example. So then if you look at, okay, what genes are up and down regulated within like a 24-hour period, you see there's a cascade of defense and metabolic genes upregulated and downregulated. I mean, right away in a plant like rice without being challenged by a pathogen. So it has to be a priming effect. The plant is primed and ready to go with silicon. If you don't have it there, it won't be primed and ready to go. Okay, because it's xylem translocated. So once it goes into the leaf, the first leaf, it polymerizes. So it's no longer available to any other leaf. So it has to be constantly fed to the plant, moving through the xylem as the plant's growing, to get the full effects of the element. There's some benefits of soils, like for an example, it helps to reduce manganese toxicity. Whether it's a soil, again, a soil application's affecting that with something going on in interaction with manganese, or better assimilation and distribution of the plant so it doesn't accumulate where it's toxic. Same thing with phosphorus. It's been shown in low phosphate soils you can enhance the accumulation of phosphorus. I think most people who study soil science, they've been taught that silicon is the second most abundant element in the Earth's crust. So most soils have plenty of silicon, right? But that's not really the case. There's many soils that are low or limiting in that element. Even though it's there, it's not available to the plant at the quantities it needs to perform like it needs to perform, especially against something like a biotic stress. The research, for example, that I was doing, I looked at it because I was in a situation where I was working where the soils were limiting. We knew they were limiting because they were highly organic and low in mineral matter, so low in elemental silicon. And we saw benefits immediately. It was you could visually walk out into a field and see the difference between a plant amended with and without, and how it's affecting plant disease. Well, if you take a country like Brazil, for an example, those soils are what they call oxisols or ultisols. Those are known to be highly weathered soils, which means they're low pHs, low base saturations, they're high in aluminum, low in elemental silicon. In Brazil, it may be 60% of the land area are those kind of soils. And they're growing a lot of agronomic crops like sugarcane and rice that have been proven to be very beneficial. And so these growers are using it because they've been shown that they can benefit from it, and they are benefiting from it. And then they're doing further research in a lot of other plant species, from tree fruits to vegetables. Same thing in southern Africa and parts of Asia. Those soils are the same kind of soils. They're just highly weathered soil to the southern hemisphere. In the Americas, we have ulta soils in the southeastern part of the United States. We have some pockets of organic soils that are histosoils, like in Florida and Michigan, and I forget where else. They have what they call these sandy intersoils. So sand, even though it's silicon dioxide, SiO2, I mean, it doesn't weather. That's why you have beaches, right? And so it's not supplying enough soluble silicon to the plant. It's highly insoluble in water. And so there are areas where there could be a benefit, and I think there's research that's going on now looking at a lot of different Midwestern soils. I think soils in New Jersey, where in the past they were considered to be probably high, but it's not supplying a sufficient amount of silicon, and they're showing the benefits of actually applying something like a calcium silicate to supply silicon to the plant and getting a benefit.